Well, welcome back, everyone, to the much anticipated, long awaited, never duplicated, probably for good reason, 2017 edition of Backmarkers F1 talks about random shit to do with Formula One. I, of course, am Matt. God help you all. Ilya's here with me too. Say hi, Ilya.
Sup?
Yeah, so it's been a long while since we've done this, hasn't it?
We are not able to do them annually anymore.
Yeah, semi-annually, I guess. Maybe I don't know, every what would like a decade? Like they have a fortnight? Would a decade be a thing, or I don't know?
I don't know.
Semi-decade? I guess it would be semi-decade if it's every 5 years. It has been some time though since we've done these. Life and general apathy towards recording shit got in the way, but we're here now, and well, let's get right into it. It's been an interesting season, 2017, hasn't it? The surprise of Ferrari actually having their shit together, the new cars looking pretty sexy and moving like a bat out of hell, and, well, not so surprising, Sauber still sucks.
Yeah, this season has been more exciting than initially expected. I personally expected Mercedes to just drive away into Narnia, forgetting everyone behind them, and Ferrari just claiming P2 as the best of the rest. But we're actually having a fight on our hands, which brings some good things and some bad things. We're gonna talk about them in due course, because there is a lot of stuff to talk about. I guess we're gonna start team by team, starting from the bottom, from the least relevant to the most relevant. And as the least relevant, you already announced the Sauber. Absolute gobshite.
I don't know. I mean, semi-credit to them. They're still racing old Ferrari engines, aren't they? It's still last year's model,
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So, I mean, they're never going to have, a good time with that. But still, I don't really... It's a team that's gone through so many drivers. Now they've gone through... I guess Kaltenborn was CEO, I assume. Removed, I think, by the board. Not surprising considering since she's taken over, all that she seems to be able to do is garner controversy and get worse every year. The car is... God. The car is not great, and combine that with the not so fast but fragile Wehrlein and Ericsson, who's only there because he has money. Again, it's easy to knock them, but how much better could they do given their situation? I'm not so sure.
Well, it is possible, because after all, they were competing with McLaren Honda that were unable to complete a lap in a race for the longest time, until I assume people from Woking just got their shit together, grabbed some weapons, and marched all the way to Japan to threaten Honda to make an engine that will last 2 fucking laps a race. But as for Sauber, yes, they were using old Ferraris, but, I mean, it's not that much different from bottom and, well, Renault's basically, and whatever is Toro Rosso using. I believe Toro Rosso is using last year's as well.
I'm not sure, because I remember one of the teams that was using last year, if that makes any sense, is using this year.
Okay, maybe it's Toro Rosso. I don't remember.
I think Toro Rosso's on current Ferrari. I think.
Either
there
way,
was a story about them maybe going to Honda, but we'll get to that eventually.
either way, speaking of Honda, Sauber tried to go to Honda. Manisha tried to go to Honda, and as soon as she was sacked, that entire affair was burned in a huge fire, because no sane team at this point would go to Honda, really, as McLaren is desperately trying to find a row in the contract that will allow them to jump ship to something decent. And Sauber...
I'm not so sure about that anymore, though. We'll get to that when we get to them, but I'm not sure anymore that they're... If current form is to be indicative of anything, they might stay the course.
Maybe. As for Sauber, they're gonna get a current year Ferrari engine starting from next year, and I believe that's long-term commitment. So that's gonna be the engine issue out of the way, and they're gonna start sorting their stuff out real quick. And as long as the drivers, I gotta say both gotta go. Ericsson is not gonna go
Yeah.
because he has money, but Ericsson, this is my general go-to joke. Ericsson is one of the people that managed to not win in a dams that was basically able,
The ultimate car at the time.
able to gain 5 seconds per straight. This was better than Vettel's Red Bull. That was a dominant car back then, and he managed to fail horribly. And he's still failing horribly. As for Furline, I don't know what to think about him. He got some points. Yeah, he got all 5 points that Sauber has currently. But...
Monaco and...
No, in Monaco he ended up facing the wall. Courtesy of Jenson Button.
I'm looking at a table here that only has race number. It doesn't say race name, so I probably should pull that up at some point.
It's Spain and Azerbaijan. 2 races he finished in points.
Oh, yeah. Azerbaijan, yeah, I forgot about that one.
And he might end up being a decent driver, but I guess we're gonna wait and see when he goes to a decent team. I'm gonna assume Force India.
Maybe.
Probably.
But then again, they seem happy. They seem happy with who they have. Williams, I don't know. Felipe Baby doesn't want to retire anymore, which we'll get to that when we get to Williams.
I'm not sure he has a choice anymore because he's fucking slow. Running out the Sauber talk. Furline.
Giovinazzi. Don't forget him. He drove for Sauber for 2 races and got 0 points.
Bent many a car.
Didn't he bid it twice in the second round in China?
He did. He been in practice and then been it in the race.
Hit a little wet patch and just whee.
Yeah, Furline outraced Ericsson in every single race bar one in England, I believe, in Silverstone. Oh no, never mind. He actually lost in Russia as well. So that would bring them to double retirement in Monaco. So that's gonna be 6-2 in favor of Furline right now. That's a big score, and I'm not sure Ericsson is gonna get better anytime soon.
Yeah, I gave Ericsson the benefit of the doubt in the first year. Obviously, it was clear then that he was a money sire, money hire. What would that even be? Not a talent hire, but just like me. But I gave him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe this guy, once he gets in the groove, he can get shit done. But yeah, he hasn't shown anything worth speaking about. Tied for last place alongside Palmer, who we'll get to him, and Giovinazzi, who completed 2 races. So, I mean, that kind of shows you what he's all about and where he is right now. Hopefully, the new executives and the new board, for the sake of legacy, because as much of a joke as Sauber has been in recent history, they are a historic team and they are an independent team, and it's good to have those on the grid to compete with the more corporate, let's say, teams and manufacturer teams.
For fantasy,
so it's good to have them there, but they need to get their shit together. They need to get a proper stable. They need to get the proper current engine in the car, and they also need to be able to develop something worth a damn.
For fantasy reasons, I'd like BMW to just decide to come back with what they were doing with the i8 electric engine, just make a hybrid out of it, and save the poor Swiss guys.
Possibly. That would be
I doubt that'll ever happen, but it's still fun to consider. Speaking of...
The problem, too, is with Ferrari connections, so that might be a little bit of an issue contractually. It's like Ferrari, BMW, Ferrari. I mean, the Germans and the Italians, I mean, they've got along okay historically, sometimes, but,
Well, speaking of future considerations, McLaren Honda, P9 currently, just managed to get a double point finish in the final race before the summer break in Hungary. Fernando Alonso is grasping at straws, trying to not kill himself having to drive this car week after week after week.
Yeah, poor Alonso. When it's not off the pace, it's off the kettle and into the wall because of an engine failure, or a transmission failure, or an engine failure, or an engine failure, or an engine failure. Did he in Bahrain, was it, where he didn't even make the grid? He got all the way around, then right as he was getting towards the pit straight, boop, there goes his engine.
That was not him. I
thought that was a McLaren, or was that a Fiat?
It was a McLaren.
Was it Van Dorn then?
Stoffel Van Dorn, and the next race in Russia, Alonso failed to start. So it was
so that was the one. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, at this point, it really doesn't matter where because it happened pretty much consistently up until very recently. I don't know. Yes, Formula One is hard. No shit. I get that, and I'm not trying to make light of an endeavor because, put me in that scenario, develop an engine that can do all these laps at the speed, and I'd horribly fail. But it's freaking Honda. It's one of the biggest, if not, I think the second biggest to Toyota car maker in the world, with so much money, with so much talent, with so much history in the sport. And it seems, the impression, at least from the outside, is they seem to just be half-assing it up until recently. I mean, recently they've got a vein of form and they seem to have some motivation, but they just didn't seem to care. They weren't frantically bringing upgrades every single race to try and fix these issues, or not even ignore the pace issues, but just to break them down. I don't really understand. I don't get it.
Even now, I don't think it's Honda improving. If you see 3-point finishes, first was Alonso in Azerbaijan, the race where everyone and their mother hit something. And the second race is Hungary, where you can just throw away the engine, grab a couple of pedals, and if you have good aero, you'll finish in points.
True, but you have to finish, you have to have an engine that works. I'm not saying that Honda's fast now, but at least in the last couple of races, it seemed like Honda's able to finish. Which,
this is
the third year that they were back, I think? Third year?
Not really, to be honest. In the last 5 races, Alonso finished twice in the points, and 3 other races he retired. Stoffel Van Dorn last retired back in
still
Monaco.
Better than the first half of this first half, though.
Well,
the first half of the season, it was DNF, FFFFFFFF.
Yeah, in the first part of the season, up until Canada, including Canada, they managed to bring a grand total of 4 cars home, and they started 14.
Yeah.
So that was going nowhere, and since Canada, in 4 races, they had 2 retirements, both courtesy of Alonso, or Alonso's engine. I guess we can count an extra retirement from Indianapolis, because his Honda blew up as well.
Yeah, true. I mean, so there's progress. Is it enough, though? And I would argue no. Again, I don't know what Honda hoped to achieve here. I think that we can credit Honda at least for one good thing, which is it managed to get Ron Dennis fired. So, something positive came out of this Honda deal. But, are they even trying at this point? I don't understand how. Throw everything at it. Hell, if you're going to be fragile, at least be fast. If you're going to be reliable, then if that means you have to be slow, then fine. But, they have 2 different problems right now, and they don't seem to be making real progress on the speed. They're making some progress on the reliability, but it's slow, very, very slow progress.
But in all honesty, they have to make a good car now, because Alonso basically said, "Make me a good car, or I'm gone." And without Alonso, that team is not gonna go anywhere. Stoffel Van Dorn pulling the team, please. Jensen Button's not coming back. He doesn't want that shit. He's fed up with that. Who else?
Nando Loris? He's young, but
young. He's a rookie.
He's got talent.
He's got talent, but would he perform in the first year in a gobshite car? I'm not sure. What else do they have?
Who else is going to perform in that? If the car is a piece of shit,
they also have
Alonso can do what he does, but he can't. Alonso can't just magically make the car go. He can do amazing things, but so what?
Well, if he doesn't do magic, who is? If they put a couple of rookies there, put Landon Norris, put Nobuharu Matsushita in the car, it's still not gonna go anywhere.
But it's not going anywhere now.
Yes, rookies won't complain, but they're not gonna get points. At least Alonso's getting points. At least Alonso's getting points. If not for Alonso, they will be behind Sauber now. And we all know how a few million can affect the future of a team. Ask Manor. How they basically...
Manor was never a constructor, though. I mean, McLaren has money outside of Formula One.
Well, yeah, they do, but do they want to keep Honda? Don't want to keep Honda? How much money are they losing now because they decided to go with Honda? Because with McLaren, they were earning top 5 money. They weren't gonna win anything, that's for sure. Like, the constructors with the client engine, then they're not gonna win. But they were in top 5, probably even in top 3, when Button and Hamilton were running around in those cars, unless they were binning each other in Canada. But now they're second to last, and the only car worse than them is Sauber, which I would probably
argue that Sauber is better than them. It's just that Sauber's drivers are shit.
Maybe, absolutely, possibly.
People have made that argument, and I can legitimately entertain that argument.
Yeah, that's possible. Stick Alonso in the Sauber, and he'll probably do better, just because he'll be able to finish more races.
Oh, yeah, exactly. He'll be able to push the car without it breaking on him. Yeah. Okay. So now Ron Dennis was making overtures that he wasn't going to back out of this contract, but he's obviously gone now. They're on contract, I think, for another 3 years, if I'm not mistaken, McLaren and Honda. So then the question becomes, how long does this go on? How much of an external loss are McLaren willing to float before they just say, you know what, fuck it, we're going to pay the release money or whatever it costs to terminate the contract. Just sink that cost and say, you know what, we need to get back to the front. Or do they stick with Honda? Well, I mean, I guess in that sense, yeah, then what are you going back to? Then you go back to a scenario where you're basically a client team again. And I don't know. I really don't know. It's so frustrating as a McLaren fan, and I've been a McLaren fan for years, to see them go from stupidity to stupidity, from idiotic move to idiotic move. It's that sums it up.
I mean, the only thing that's been saving them for quite a while were the drivers, and they've been losing them one after the other, and, well, Alonso is the last one. I have no idea how they managed to get him there, what they promised, and how big is the gold throne he's sitting on in his office in McLaren headquarters.
In Woking, yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, they've had well, see, that's one of the things that's annoyed me is their sort of revolving door policy when it comes to drivers, too. I mean, after Hamilton left, they had Perez, who, I mean, I honestly thought Perez was destined for great things. I hyped him up well, and I was disappointed in his performance, but disappointed enough to say that he should have gotten kicked out of his seat? No. Magnussen came in and on his debut finished second, and then
never shopped again.
No, never really showed up again, but never really, I wouldn't say completely failed. Again, as a first-year driver, I don't think he did anything horrible on the lines of, like, he didn't do a Kvyat. He hit a couple people, yeah, sure, but he didn't do a Kvyat where he was consistently crashing into people every single race. And then they binned him. And so now we're in a scenario where I don't know what's going to happen, and a lot of this is going to have to revolve around what the board decide to do, what this new McLaren leadership does. The overtures and the sounds coming out of them are good. It sounds like what's the guy's name? Their new CEO or COO or whatever Dennis's title was.
No idea.
But you know the guy I'm talking about. I mean, from everything I've heard from him, he sounds like he's got a good head on his shoulders. He's not going to stick to this Honda deal if it continues to be shit. He's more of a pragmatist than Ron. I mean, yes, Ron landed Senna. That's probably the only good thing he did in his career at McLaren, and then he lost Senna. So, take that for what it's worth. I don't know what are the other alternatives for them. As you said, go back to Mercedes. Well, then you're the client team again. No way in hell they're going to go to Ferrari with basically a lot of aero people from Ferrari having transited to McLaren for some sort of hopes, I guess. I don't know. I mean, everyone's bailed on Renault besides frickin' Red Bull, who sort of pseudo...
Who didn't have a choice.
Yeah. So Renault might be a legitimate client engine for them, but I mean, they're not doing too much better than Honda is right now, so at least their car can finish races when their drivers aren't crashing, but
That would be a good segue to Renault,
Yeah.
but I'm gonna absolutely ruin it by having one simple question left about McLaren. What the fuck is Van Dorn doing? He was absolutely dominating in GP2. He was the force to be reckoned with, and he was projected to be one of the next great drivers. He was put in McLaren, and he forgot how to drive. Regardless of how shit McLaren is, Alonso is just beating him with one pinky, basically.
I will give Van Dorn a
doing.
little bit of a leeway here in that it's Fernando Alonso, the man who basically took Ferrari from their midfield bullshit. We don't know what we're doing. We're going to be aggressive, but we're not. But we made a donkey basically, and Fernando Alonso took that donkey and basically threw it 100 meters forward of where it should be. I mean, if you look at the points table, 10-1. Fernando in 15th, Stoffel in 18th. I'm not sure that I would necessarily blame Stoffel. He's a new driver to Formula One in a shit car with a shit engine. He's not doing too great. No, he's not having a great debut season. I don't think you could make that argument. But at the same time, to try and say that the deficit between teammates is somehow indicative of Van Dorn's going to be a complete failure in the future, I don't think so. I think that he's not going to be, I don't know, a Valtteri Bottas story, but I think he could get up there in the midfield given time.
I'm thinking if Van Dorn keeps going like that, he's just not gonna have future in Formula One.
Maybe it depends on what the CEO does.
He's gonna get tossed for another rookie, and unless he starts performing, nobody's gonna care what he did in GP2. They're gonna see his terrible season in Formula One and not gonna pick him up and instead go for another rookie. So Van Dorn needs to show up now, and he has the talent, he has the speed. He dominated the rookies. He was unreachable. The only person who was able to keep up with him is Sirotkin, who is the other guy that's sitting right now in Renault, doing absolutely fuck all, while the useless cunt Jolyon Palmer is basically driving around, having zero clue about how the car is supposed to be driven. Speaking of which, Renault.
Oh man, a tale of two cities, a tale of two drivers. The perennial midfielder Nico Hülkenberg, who can never seem to land himself that drive that I think he deserves, but for one reason or another never seems to get, is doing well. Some incidents aside and some rather spicy balls aside, 26 points in 10th place is nothing to sneeze at. I think that he's doing a commendable job. It should also be noted that 26 points is exactly the same 26 points that Renault have for the entire season. Again, people make the argument all the time, and I hear this from people. Oh, so-and-so did so well in GP2. So-and-so did so well in GP3. And you were alluding to this point, I think, just a minute ago. At some point, yes, you can say that they have some inner talent, but at some point, you run out of talent. As famously Martin Brundle likes to say when people crash, he ran out of talent. There's a certain amount where you can keep progressing and developing yourself, but eventually you reach a limit. And I think for some, lower formulae are the limit. Van Dorn, I'm not confident that he's reached his limit. Palmer, on the other hand, what the hell is he still doing in Formula One?
You're saying about dominating in rookie formulas. The other thing, he wasn't.
Not dominating, but he showed some talent. I can understand one of these people in F1.
Did he? By the time he managed to finally win, for him to win the championship, it took him a dams and basically 6 years. 6 years in Formula 2 and GP2 to win. He was 25 when 24, I believe, when he managed to win the Rookie Series, where people 19, 20, 21-year-olds are racing.
Mm-hmm.
This
influx of youth is a new thing to the sport. I'm willing to look beyond that because it wasn't too long ago that 24 was a young debut in F1. I mean, in the Verstappen era, yeah, that seems like really old, but we got to remember, how old was Ricardo when he debuted? Right? So
Yep.
that's not uncommon, and yes, it took him 6 years in the dams to win it. I get that, and I understand that. He still needed to keep the car on the track. I'm not saying that he showed talent in being fast, but he seemed like someone who A, had money, and B, had at least a consistency, if not the ultimate speed, that he could actually perform for Renault. In this series, in F1 now, when the car's not braking, which granted that's not his fault, I'm not blaming him for those DNFs, but when the car's not braking, he's braking or not braking and then hitting things. I don't know. Some of it is gone on the radar because he's usually so far down the field that it usually gets cliff noted in the race. Oh, by the way, Palmer had another DNF because he hit something, and you only see the results of the virtual safety car. But the guy, while I wouldn't quite call him dangerous as I would call Kvyat, I think he's just, I don't even know. And it's annoying because Renault does have promise. Renault is going through the sort of teething stage that Honda did, but actually taking it in stride, developing the car, and they've got a talented driver in Nico Hulkenberg. But if they want to progress further, they're going to need to get rid of Palmer. They need to have double point scores. Hulkenberg can do it. Get someone else in that car who's decent behind the wheel. Maybe put Kvyat in there, and hope that he doesn't crash into something. Because Kvyat does have some pace. He demonstrated some pace in Red Bull.
He got on podium. He got on podium in Formula One. He has the pace.
Yep.
He had it. He had it until shit happens. He rammed Vettel. I mean, every driver at some point
Wants to ram
did
Vettel.
something terrible. I mean, you
Well,
remember?
every driver
You
wants to
remember?
ram Vettel. He's been an annoying asshole once again. He's
Yeah,
gone
and-
back from mature Vettel during the Red Bull years, where he went from annoying asshole to okay, he's got a decent head on his shoulders, to going back to being an annoying asshole.
Absolutely, and then you remember the same thing. Canada 2011, Jenson Button, brilliant driver, great man. He basically plowed his way through the race to the win. He crashed Hamilton and he crashed Alonso, right? And both were absolutely
so,
his
yeah.
fault.
Yeah.
He moved Hamilton into the wall in the start-finish line, and then he rear-ended Alonso onto the curb. Got a couple of penalties, spent forever fixing his car,
And he was a hero.
and then spectated Vettel losing all by himself on the final lap to see his incredible victory, which will still probably be one of the best races in history of Formula 1. He was the hero of that race, regardless of how shit he was. And regarding Kvyat, he has the speed. He can be good. He had that fuck up in a Red Bull, and he was unfortunate enough that Red Bull just needed one small reason to move him in favor of promising Verstappen, which they had to put there, otherwise he would have been gone to the other team.
Well,
And
I
as
guess
soon-
we could transit. Sorry, go ahead.
And as soon as they moved Kvyat down in Toro Rosso, he was gone, basically. He's still gone, he can't
Yeah.
do anything. And a move to Renault, move to any other middle of a table team, would help him immensely. The question is Red Bull willing to part with them? This is a whole other question. I guess we're going to talk about it when we reach Toro Rosso and Red Bull. But finishing on Renault, regarding Palmer, even in his winning year in GP2, in Dams, he only won 4 races. It's not that much. And if we see progression through GP2, in his debut year, he was 28th, and his best result, let's see, he was 9th twice. He got a grand total of 0 points. Then he was 11th in 2012, 7th with Carlin in 2013, and finally managed to win it in 2014 with Dams. And Dams was dominating, and I still believe the only reason he won is that Stoffel van Dorn took half a season to finally decide to race. Until Hockenheim, Van Dorn basically was sitting around on his ass, not getting any points, and being in the middle of the field. Then in the second half he decided to start driving, grabbed whatever he could, but by that time Jolin won enough races and got enough podiums to just sit around on his ass, get a couple of wins late in the season and secure the win by a great margin. There is another case regarding Dams that his teammate was Riquelme, if I recall correctly, and he was gobshite, but
Yeah.
it's
Yeah,
the
that
founder
was-
Riquelme and he went nowhere.
Hey, we might have another Italian in F1, and he's gone.
Monegasque. Same thing, really.
Same thing.
But yeah, that's one thing I wholeheartedly agree with is Jolyon Palmer needs to go. The sooner the better. They need to find a better driver. They need to get 2 cars into the points. They might be a good contender for, maybe 5th place, challenging Williams, maybe even challenging Force India.
Well, just think about it this way, right?
Difficult.
If they had another driver who was, marginally worse than Hulkenberg and got, say, 20 points himself over this course,
They are
that's
5th.
46 points. That puts him above Williams in 5th.
Yeah.
I mean,
They
hell,
do.
even if the other driver got half the points, right? That's 39. That puts him tied with 6th.
Tied with Toro Rosso, yeah.
So, I mean, it is becoming a matter of Palmer being as much of a pay driver as he is, can supplement the income he's losing the team with his own money. But at what point does that become no? We want to actually try and win something here, and as the car progresses, and I feel it will. He needs to go. Hulkenberg's doing well. A couple nebulous incidents aside, there's not really much to say about him. To tie that back really quickly, though, do you think that with Stoffel, he's sort of doing now what he did during that first half of GP2, where he's just kind of like, well, the car's not going anywhere anyway, why am I bothering to be here? This sucks. I just need to punch the numbers in until I can maybe try for a better seat? I don't think one exists, but he might be deluding himself.
I sure hope so. At least I hope he wakes up and gets some points in the second half of the season. Because he needs that, McLaren needs that, and maybe it'll help Alonso stay if both drivers get into the points finally and get at least past Toro Rosso by the end of the season. That's what they need to do. That's where they really need to be, around Williams, around Toro Rosso, if they want to keep Alonso there.
Yeah.
But, yeah, Palmer needs to go, Van Dorn needs to go faster. And on that note, onto the American team, Haas. Interesting season for those guys.
Yeah.
I want to say bad things about Magnussen, but he hasn't been performing too bad. Well, apart from his absolute tantrums at random intervals. I don't know if he decided to have the early Grosjean disease, where he has flashes of brilliance in the sea of why, but that's what he's currently doing. And Grosjean, all of a sudden, I never believed in him. And then all of a sudden he decided to become a responsible person, able to drive a Formula 1 car. And he is doing great things right now with Haas.
Yeah, a series of decent points, I guess. At least both of them are close to one another, so in that sense you can say, hey, they're both contributing to the team. Haas, I think, is doing decently for a sophomore year car-wise. Brakes aside. And to credit them, they both have to deal with extremely temperamental drivers. As you said, Magnussen has been having weird random outbursts, and I don't think a race has gone by that Grosjean hasn't basically had a tantrum about his brakes or the front of the car. I don't think I've heard him say a positive thing yet about the car. So, all things considered, not a bad effort. Although, look back to last year, and it kind of tells a different story in the sense that they came in, made their mark, and basically said, here we are, bitches, deal with some of this. Proceeded to get better for the next, I think, 2 races, and then we're nowhere. Which you could argue back then, okay, it's a development year, it's their first year, they got some great results, and now they're going to put their foot down and get to it. But they're still a middling team at this point, and with the Ferrari backing, I would have expected more from them. Seeing as they are the de facto Ferrari junior team, I would have expected them to at least have better equipment than Toro Rosso. Then again, Toro Rosso has Red Bull Aero feeds, I guess. Totally not talking about it together as a team. No, never. That would be illegal, no. 10 points behind, not a huge gulf in class there, but only 3 points ahead of Renault, who, as we've said, have basically been relying on one driver to bring it home. I don't know whether they need more money, they need more time, or need more technical assistance. We'll have to see, but an average, I would say, sophomore year for them, especially with the promise that came off the first year.
The whole other thing is Dallara. I don't think they used to have an insane amount of upgrades throughout the season and doing stuff. Lately they've been doing the spec lower formulas, the Indy, which is basically give them a chassis and have them deal with it throughout the season. And now they have to scramble everyone and work the entire year to make the car better constantly.
But they have had some upgrades that haven't worked. Believe they tried them on Grosjean's car, and that only made him cry more. So it's a process. I'm happy in a sense that it's not like the sophomore year that Honda had, or this year that they're having. I think this is their third year. Am I totally losing it, Honda?
I think.
I think it was
so.
2015 that came in.
Yeah, it was 15.
Yeah, so it's better in a sense that they can at least get their shit together, but where does the problem lie? I think it's a little bit of everything. Their car, they need to put more work into. Grosjean is more responsible now, but slower, notably so. Whether or not that's a good or a bad thing, I mean, I guess since he's not trying to kill people every other race, it's a good thing. And Magnussen needs to get his head down, stop seeing red every 5 seconds, and suck some of those balls.
Hulkenberg definitely has an advice or two regarding the last thing. But both Haas and Honda, despite being mediocre at best, have surpassed the 3 other new teams we had before, none of which are alive. We had Marussia, Maynard, whatever, which got points thanks to Bianchi's wonders in Monaco. We got, Hispania, which I don't know why they existed in the first place. I guess they brought us the image of Liuzzi and
Choo choo!
yeah, and what's this Indian?
Karthikeyan, Narain Karthikeyan.
Yeah.
Oh, and Chandok before him. Chandok drove in their debut year, I think,
Yeah.
and then it was Karthikeyan.
Yeah, those two. It brought us the image, but it didn't bring a decent car.
I think it needed Colin Collis needed something to do. So.
Well, he found himself hobby of burning prototype cars every year in Le Mans. So at least he's busy, I guess. And the third team, I don't even know what to think about those. They tried to be Lotus, they tried to be Caterham, they tried to be many things, but they didn't try to be a Formula 1 car. Yeah. All 3 of them are gone. 3 teams combined got, 2 points, courtesy of Jules Bianchi. But here, Honda is getting points, or Alonso is getting points. Haas is getting points, quite a few, beating the Renault team, the factory team.
Yeah.
It's terrible factory team, but it's still a factory team. It's not that bad, and...
No, it's not the end of the world. It's not like I'm going to sit here and be like, well, my dream of a successful American F1 team is fucked. It might be. In a couple years' time, we might look back and say, well, they never really were going anywhere from the start. However, as it stands now, and especially if you look at the history of teams that have entered the sport and then imploded, as you've just laid out recently, and then you look back a little bit further even, and it was a regular occurrence, doing a decent job for being only the second year in, theoretically, the most competitive motorsport in the world, although in practice I'm not sure anymore.
Yeah, not even near. Well, at least it's not the worst US-based Formula 1 team anymore. Because at least they showed up for a race.
Yeah, true. God, that's something... I like Peter Windsor, I really do, but that's something that I never will understand, how that went to hell so quickly.
At least it was hilarious while it lasted.
Oh, yeah, it was funny as fuck. I think their Twitter is still up from the last tweet in 2012 or something, like these rumors, like one of those typical lines, like, the rumors of my death are premature or some shit like that. I'm actually going to look that up right now. USF1, I think it was what their handle was. Let's look at the old Twitter ski and see USF1 search. User No, not that one. Users with. Maybe that one. Come on, phone. Help me out here. USF1 team. Yep. The official account of the United States Formula One team. Last tweet, 2,739 days ago. The USF1 team web server is down and is being repaired as this is written. We are not gone, as many have reported. More news soon.
I guess they never fixed it.
God, I think that was Marzen hosting their web server or something. Anybody who isn't in our group who hears that's going to be like, what the fuck? But trust us, it's an in thing.
Yeah, more in jokes, please. Speaking of being filed while it lasts, Toro Rosso. Two hot-headed young guys were pinned against each other in a team that basically has no idea what it's supposed to be doing, because it's definitely producing drivers for the main team anytime soon. Those seats are occupied for long term. So these two are left without a good seat, and Red Bull doesn't want to give them away. They want a hefty bag of money. So these two are basically stuck in no man's land, just trying to race around, and as a result, they don't give a shit, and stuff happens.
Yeah.
Mostly to the Russian,
yeah.
but Sainz had his share of why.
Moments. Yeah.
Grosjean can tell a story or two about that.
Yeah. Well, just looking at, according to F1 Fanatic, both drivers at Toro Rosso do not have a contract for next year, so really all they have to realistically do is just sit back and not renew their contract, and they're free to go. So there's no worries there about having to do any tricky legal bullshit. But yeah, no, it's been an interesting year for Toro Rosso. The car itself looks good. The car itself has the ability to perform, and they're only 2 points behind Williams at the moment in fifth. And really, the gulf between Williams and Force India up ahead, which we'll get to eventually, is just it's
more than 2 Williams.
Yeah, for multiple reasons that I can't fully blame on the car, but we'll get there. Toro Rosso can compete, and as much as I don't like him, I can't deny that Kvyat has pace. He has talent. He just seems to be suffering from a Grosjean complex. The difference being is I don't see him being humble enough to accept the fact that he needs to deal with that shit. Grosjean, like we said, through whatever means he did, he figured out how to deal with his shit. And, well, now he's not killing people every other race. Kvyat, I think, is too young and hot-headed to realize that. So what do we do with him? Where does he go? I don't know. Sainz, while he has had some moments, he is doing very well. Primary point scorer for the team, 35 in the bag. But like you said, I mean, Toro Rosso's identity has always been bringing in the new generation of Red Bull driver. And with the hot new Verstappen and the perennial second-place Australian in the team already, what are you going to do? I mean, what happens?
Nothing, I guess. They're not gonna go up. Regarding Grosjean, what helped him as well, along with psychotherapy, was family.
True, having a kid, yeah, that helped.
He had a kid, and well, Kvyat is young, but he found the PK of choice, so maybe she'll manage to calm him down, and maybe he will show up for a race and not for a crash fest at some point.
Maybe.
I mean,
yeah.
In the least, it's a distraction from whatever shit he's been doing on track. So, who knows? Maybe she'll manage to get him on the right track, as Grosjean's family and psychotherapist did to him. I guess we're gonna wait and see. He just has to hang on to Formula One for long enough to see the difference. As for Sainz,
the problem is, I could see Sainz moving I could see them taking the Spanish angle at McLaren and being like, okay, we're going to grab Sainz if they don't think Mando is ready. I can't see anybody picking up Kvyat. I don't know who would. Fairly or unfairly, he's made an enemy of pretty much the entire paddock.
Renault?
Would Renault... who else would... Well, okay, so who else could Renault grab? And what if Renault grabs Sainz? If both of them are out of contract at the end of the year, and I assume that somebody at Renault has a brain and realizes Palmer needs to fucking go, who do they grab? Who else is there to grab?
Yeah, there is a huge line for Renault. We have Kvyat, we have Sainz, we have out of nowhere Kubica, yeah. We have Sirotkin, who's been waiting for his chance forever. this is at least 4 drivers for 1 spot.
Yeah, well, I had completely forgotten about Kubica. Kubica, we've had that debate before. I don't remember which is proper. Yeah, no, I mean, that would be just based on PR alone. That would be the ultimate pick, and if he can demonstrate consistent pace, go for it. That'd be awesome. But I'm trying to remain focused on what I think is more realistic, and so in that sense, yeah, okay, Sirotkin maybe. But then again,
if Sirotkin doesn't land a seat in Renault, he will jump seat. He needs F1 time, otherwise he's not gonna go back full time in GP2. There's no space for him.
and why would you?
Yeah, he overgrew that. He got his 2nd place behind Stoffel Van Dorn, and Van Dorn was unreachable, so he was basically the best of the rest. As right now we see Ollie Rowland and Artem Makler fighting for that title, as the Monegasque flies away. We see the same story, and Sirotkin needs Formula 1 time, or he's gonna go. He's either gonna go to the other team, or he's gonna go to the other sport. He's not gonna sit around as a test driver forever waiting for his chance. He's not gonna waste his time. So either Renault picks up Kubica for PR, they pick up Sirotkin for, well, young talent. Toro Rosso drivers, I don't know where they fit here, or if they fit at all. I can kind of see Hulkenberg leaving to the other team. Hulkenberg likes to jump teams, trying to find that midfielder that will finally jump ahead. And that's Force India, and that's a bit hilarious, but later about that.
All you needed to do was put an arrest warrant out for the CEO of the company, and suddenly the results come.
Yeah, I don't know what's gonna happen to the Toro Rosso drivers. They're both stuck in not the greatest of situations, but I guess all they're gonna do is perform now and hope somebody wants them next season, because I don't think Red Bull system needs them particularly.
No, I don't think so either.
They'll be fine if any of them fucks off and they can put Gasly in that seat.
Yeah, or if they somehow manage the coup of the century, and if Ferrari balk on Leclerc, but they give him the option. I can't imagine that happening, but I'm just trying to think. I mean, Charles Leclerc needs to be in Formula One next season. Period.
If
he needs to be in F1.
If somebody manages to steal Leclerc from Ferrari, that's going to be the heist of a century in Formula One.
Exactly, but Ferrari are typically very thick-headed when it comes to wanting their 1-2s. And so Leclerc actually could put pressure on Vettel, I think, if he shows a fraction of the talent he's showing in GP2 in F1.
I can see Leclerc and Haas next year. I can see
I
Magnussen
would
being
see him
sent
there too.
off.
I would see him there too.
Yeah, I can see Magnussen leaving. They're gonna
Find some balls.
They're gonna keep the Frenchman for experience. They're gonna sit Leclerc, telling him, "Kid, okay, you have F1 drive. Show what you can do, and if you can do, then Kimi's gone, and you got the Ferrari seat."
Could be, yeah. But then again, then when he gets there, I still see him competing with Vettel. That's the big problem, right? If Vettel stays, they're basically treating Vettel now how Red Bull treated Vettel when he drove for them as the number one golden boy. And so the problem, right, is if you put Leclerc in that seat, he's not going to, again, assuming he shows the talent that he has now, or some fraction of it, he could take the fight to Vettel, and I'm not sure that Ferrari want to see that. Again, this is a different Ferrari under Arriva Bene, and maybe that will start to go away. I'm not sure, though, and old habits die hard, especially when it comes to Italians. So,
do you want to keep Vettel as the first driver forever, though?
No.
His temper tantrums are something else, and at some point, I believe you gotta have to use him, and then get rid of him before he starts to become trouble. That's basically what Red Bull did.
Oh, imagine if the next year's car isn't as good as this year's car, right? I mean, having tasted the potential to win the championship and then go back to Ferrari's modern normal
Last
position
year.
of, yeah, exactly. It would be apocalyptic, and he'd probably ram everybody off the track and escape serious penalty because it's Ferrari. But that's neither here nor there at the moment. So yeah, I think we've pretty well laid out Toro Rosso's position. Now let's go to what the fuck were you doing signing these drivers portion of the cast? Williams, fifth place, only 2 points ahead of Taro Rosso with 41 points. And
Wha-
winners of biggest gap to team ahead award. Besides, no,
Red Bull is Red
60
Bull and
points.
Ferrari.
Red Bull Ferrari is 40.
More than 100.
No, oh Jesus, no. That's a 1 there, Matt. That's not a 2. Okay, never mind. Ignore everything. I'm full of shit. What the fuck, Stroll and Massa?
Well, Massa was basically, I assume, pulled out of retirement with... I can literally see a fishing rod with a bag of money wiggled in front of him. Led to Williams headquarters to get him to another year because they literally couldn't find another driver willing to put his ass next to Stroll for this season, as Bottas waved goodbye and fucked off to the best team on the grid. Massa is basically...
He thought.
Massa is basically driving around for his pleasure, not even trying to be good. He's prime passed in 2008. He is never gonna get better. He's just driving around, doing his things, still getting in points consistently, because Williams is not that bad usually.
Mm-hmm.
Occasionally. Stroll, I have no idea where to start.
Well,
He has the speed, but most of the time he doesn't have brakes to compensate for that speed, so he ends up in every wall imaginable.
lots of speed, not a lot of brains. I think is a fair assessment of that. I mean, that the results show for themselves. Besides the 15 points he got for, all credit to him, a great result in Azerbaijan. He kept his head while everyone around him was crashing. All credit to him. He did well in that race. But if you look at the rest of the races, 0.00002, 15, 1, 0, 0.
Basically one race.
Yeah, one race is the only reason why he's anywhere with Felipe in the standings. Take that out, replace that with one of his normal finishes, a 2-1. Give him 5 points even, and that puts him at 8 points. That puts him just ahead of Verline in 15th or 16th place. Excuse me.
And this 15 points, it's not a spectacular... It was a good drive, yes, the car was fast, he was decently fast, but imagine Vettel not being a fucking toddler and ramming Hamilton under yellow flags. Imagine Hamilton's headrest not getting loose. Imagine Bottas not being fucked in the ass by everybody on the track. Imagine no red flag and half of Baku being filled with debris from Formula 1 cars. He's not gonna go anywhere near top 3.
No,
He's
sure.
gonna get
but
his
the
usual
point
8th, 9th.
No, we can say that, and that's very much true. But then again, at the same time, at Baku this year, Vettel did have a temper tantrum. Hamilton's headrest did pop off. We did have a red flag. The track was full of debris, and with all those confounding factors, Stroll managed third. So I agree with you. I'm not trying to say that. Some people were trying to say again. This is the same thing with Maldonado when he got his miracle win in Spain. People were like, "Oh, look, this proves that he actually has talent." No, it proves that on the day, the stars aligned, the planets were in sync, divine intervention was in effect. Whatever you want to believe in, shit just went his way. And yes, he had to get the car there. Credit to him. He didn't crash at what is one of the more difficult circuits. So I'm not saying that he's absolutely hopeless, a la Julian Palmer. At the same time, he needs to get locked down on consistency and not crashing the car. There was some talk in Australia with looking at his wheel movements that it might be a fact that he wasn't as physically fit as the rest of the drivers. I'm not sure I buy into that. We'll have to wait and see. If he starts to pick up the results, then I'm happy to say that this was a rookie year. Let's just look at the good positive parts and the parts where he has to learn and go from there. Although it is worrying, though, that after what was a stellar performance and what should have been the start of, for let's say somebody with promise, should have been the start of a revival, as it were, at least to where he could compete with Massa. Well, the next race, 1 point to Massa's 2. Okay, he was on par, and then 0 points. At some point, he needs to get ahead of Felipe, the geriatric who came out of retirement simply because nobody else could fill the slot. And as you said, somebody who's just punching in the numbers, not giving a fuck.
The problem for Williams is that they don't have anyone to put in the seats. They don't have the youth. I can't name you one driver that they can bring from lower single-seaters who's ready for Formula 1, who they can put in the seat and expect at least decent performance. So Massa is their best bet, which is terrible with regards of how slow he is and how old he is, and the fact that he should have been retired for half a year.
Yeah, I mean, Paul di Resta being their reserve driver, he came in and did.
Well, he did well.
He
He
did well.
he hasn't driven a Formula 1 car in 5 years, and he managed to be sort of on pace in the qualifying. He did 5 laps, and during his last lap, he almost caught Zalbers. He wasn't too far off the Zalbers, and he didn't have a single practice. I'm still thinking that if Massa wasn't such, I don't know, wheel hog there in free practice 3, and if he admitted that he was not gonna race in the morning, and if the rest had those 90 minutes, he could have had a decent result in qualifying. Definitely beating Zalbers, maybe challenging, was Renault the second worst? Because McLaren finally decided to perform.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, but at the same time, right? He did okay, right?
If the race
You don't want your only other prospect in a sea of geriatric or young crash-happy kid to be okay. You want to at least have some other sort of hot prospect or something in the pipeline that you could be like, okay, if we need to grab him, we grab this guy and go with it. There may be a little musical chairs going on, some rumor that maybe Kimi would go to them if Ferrari gave him the boot, but even still, then you're in a similar sort of situation. Raikkonen, well, younger than Massa, and while I think indefinitely more talented than Massa, at the same time, isn't some new hot prospect that's going to stay in F1 for the next 20 years. You know, there needs to be somebody new at some point, and unless you start poaching has-beens from F2 or, you know, somebody who doesn't have ties to somebody, which I'm not sure all the. I mean, I know that Matsushita's tied down, Leclerc's tied down, Roland I think is tied down, Markelov is. I'm not sure where Markelov's going, but it's. I don't know what they're planning on doing, because at some point you're going to need somebody new, and I don't know what Williams is thinking they're going to do at that point.
Well, you said about Markelov, and they might try to hunt him down, because Markelov has no ties, he has no big sponsors. He is, the only reason he's here is because he's fast. He's a young, good driver, but he has 0 sponsors. The Russian, what's his face, the ones that are currently everywhere in GT, I forgot the name of the company.
And it's not Gazprom, it's Russian time?
Yeah, he is in Russian time, yeah.
Yeah.
They got some support, but it's not much. It's definitely not enough to get him a seat in Formula 1. And Williams has no young talent, so maybe they can steal him, because he has no ties with anyone. This is basically the best free agent you're gonna find, because he is third in GP2, Roland is tied down, and Leclerc...
Who's Roland with?
Roland...
I forget.
He with Renault.
He might be. I'll Google that for you.
I'm already doing it.
We have this planned, ladies and gentlemen. We're not complete dumbasses. But we are.
Right. Yeah, Renault is the development driver for Renault currently.
Okay, fair enough.
So he's basically another seat in the line for Palmer's place. That's 5 on 1.
Christ. God, I don't... Yeah. They need to do something. I mean, and they don't even have, like, a plan for, like, some token driver, right? Like, you know, grabbing, I don't know, like, some female from somewhere and being like, look, woman, breasts, look at us, you know, that kind of thing. Like, I don't...
I just got a stupid idea. Imagine if they managed to land Danica Patrick.
Oh my god!
With Lance Stroll.
If that were to happen, then I would go back on my promise to stop caring about the sport because of Halo and be like, okay, the Halo is required. We have these on the grid. The Halo is required. It might not do very much. It might not be worth anything. But you know what? At this point, anything is needed to help these people survive the absolute assault that they're about to have. Speaking of things and assaults and bad PR, I just noticed that Mary's back in F2. I didn't know that happened at some point. He was there for like 2 races and then fucked off.
Yeah, that man was... he tried a con of the year, and he ended up being the one conned. That was funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, speaking of funny, Force India Space, it's...
Holy shit.
Yeah,
Where
basically
did this come from?
Force India right now has the same amount of points as, let's try to calculate. That's not the
I
best
think the
time.
next 3 teams combined at least 41, 39. That's going to be
and
80,
it's gonna
then 109. So
Yeah,
almost.
so Williams, Toro Rosso, and Haas are just 8 points ahead of Force India. This is a huge gap for a team that was basically
Nowhere.
midfielders forever.
Yeah. Well, they did have that one good race with Fiscala Spa, I believe, second place, and they only lost that because of because Kimmy's Kurz at the time worked and theirs didn't. That was 08, right? Yeah, because in 07 they were
Yeah.
Spiker, I think.
Yeah. But Checo Perez finally found his team. As soon as he fucked off from McLaren, he finally found his pace back. He's doing rather well. And my god, Esteban Ocon.
Yeah, 09 actually, I remember, because that was when Kurz was first introduced. But yeah, no, Ocon, oh my. I mean, oh my. Some tempering needed. Some rash decision-making behind the wheel. I don't think anybody can dispute that. He's not necessarily always had the best relationship with Perez, but again, Perez was billed by many, yours truly included, as like the next big thing in Formula One. He's been around the block with McLaren and with Force India. Ocon just basically comes in and's like, bitch, have some of this. If it weren't for Leclerc, which I think Leclerc goes with the French flag sometimes, I'm not sure. Monegasque, like Nico Rosberg was.
He usually goes with Monaco.
Cough.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. So one way or another, Ocon is just. We finally, I think, have the first French talent back in Formula One since Alain Prost. To be honest, if he keeps this up, he's destined for some really good things. Really, really solid performances, and helping Force India along the way. Again, this is an example of what you want with a young teammate or a young second driver, basically. Not necessarily the most consistent. He has rookie moments and sometimes hits teammates, which he shouldn't do. But on the
Applies to
whole,
both.
on the whole, he's able to get performances out of it. And if you look at his history, 1 point in the first 3 races, each race, so 1-1-1, then 6-10-0, where touchy happened, 8-8-4-4-2. Which are on par with what Perez was getting in those races too. So a little bit of a mild start, but then got right into it. I see good things happening with Esteban in the future.
Definitely. He, regarding Force India in general, it's the team all of a sudden became good. The cars are going. The cars are fast, and Vijay Mallya basically got hit in the noggin with a pot of gold. All of a sudden, because he was deep in the shit.
He still is. He's still wanted in India. I have a friend from India who basically is like, yeah, he sets one foot in that country and he's going to be arrested. He's still in deep shit there.
Yeah,
but I think that
he's
on
a
the
deep
technical
shit,
end,
but,
yeah,
but nothing was working for him. And then all of a sudden, Force India decided to just go. Both drivers clicked. Yes, they sometimes click into each other. But they did click, and they are the best of the midfield, because you only have the big 3 ahead of them.
Well, they're almost in their own class. It's almost like there's an upper midfield and lower midfield now.
Yeah, basically, the upper midfield is basically Force India alone.
Yeah, exactly. That's it.
Or, I mean, you can add Red Bull to that, I guess, but 80 points is almost double of what. It's like Mercedes, Ferrari all by themselves, then Red Bull.
All by themselves.
Ricardo having podium moments from time to time, all by
Or Verstappen
themselves.
not having a car that works half the time.
Then Force India all by themselves. Then everybody else, and then Honda and Sauber.
And even then, Sauber have half the points that Honda have. So
Well, I mean 11 and 5. Half
Yeah,
is
true.
not that. Half is not that
Okay.
grand
Williams,
grand
Toro Rosso,
sounding
Haas,
as
Renault.
double.
Fernando Alonso, then McLaren Sauber.
Well, if you go on that way, then Toro Rosso has Hulkenberg, Alonso,
Yeah, fair
and
enough.
then
Yeah, Hulkenberg, Fernando Alonso,
Furline.
Renault, Renault, McLaren Sauber. uh,
Yeah, there shenanigans happened back then. But
Yep.
yeah, Force India is doing great. I can see them going forwards. I can see great future for Ocon, and Perez finally found his place. Maybe they're gonna fight Red Bull at some point. Hopefully in a couple of years. Yeah, we're gonna wait and see. They got wagon money from BMT, and one of the best liveries in the entire field.
yeah, it looks so good. Yeah, and
So-
if and you got to think right after the summer shutdown, Red Bull bring a bad update, Force India bring a good update, get a couple solid races. We know that what's it called, Monza, that one right has never been Red Bull strength. Spa also has straight lines that are fairly long, so
USA.
U.S. Well,
Mexico.
I'm just thinking near term, right? Near term, what do we have? Near term, we have Belgium,
Belgium,
Italy.
Italy, Singapore.
Yeah, Singapore I would
Is
give
theirs.
to Red Bull easily.
Yeah.
But 2 races where Force India really could make their mark, get a good result. Sebastian Vettel has a tantrum. Kimi gets hit by Bottas. Something happens to one of the Verstappen's car breaks down. Something happens to one of the guys up ahead of them, and they could pick up some decent points. Maybe start to claw back at that. But then after Singapore, what do we have? Malaysia, Japan, U.S., Mexico.
Mexico.
I mean, 4 races where they could.
Red Bull
very
is gonna go nowhere. Yeah.
Yeah, very easily surmount Red Bull.
Then you get Brazil, where the Red Bull will dominate
and then
them.
Abu Dhabi.
Abu Dhabi,
Yeah,
which
yeah,
is
exactly.
anyone's game.
Yeah.
It's Abu Dhabi is a brilliant track. I didn't like it at first, but it's a brilliant track as it has everything. It has those big straights. It has those tight corners. So every car can have its strength there. So it's anyone's game, and I would love Force India to catch Red Bull up there and have a showdown in Abu Dhabi.
Well, Abu Dhabi is one of those tracks where I think DRS has actually done a really, really good job, because we saw the problem with it back in 2010, where Petrov basically denied Alonso the championship just because you couldn't get past on the straight. And at that time, it had reached a point where in development, most of the cars, bar McLaren initially, and then Red Bull later. Or no, hang on, no, 20. I'm thinking of 2009, 2010, when Red Bull was just like, "Hey, yay, the Australian's gonna win." Then no, oops, we meant the German. Since then, DRS has really helped the track, and since you can actually now make overtakes happen, and I think that people are just going for it more. There's a lot less procession in general, which some of the young influx of talent is helping to make happen, I think.
Yeah, I was about to say, young guys are not sitting back and waiting for the moment. They're just gonna go.
They
gonna
make
go,
the
man.
moment. Yeah, they don't wait for the moment to come to them. They make the moment. Sometimes they make a little bit too much of a moment, a la Kvyat or Stroll. But, you know,
Yeah, well, that happens with the young drivers, but that's even that is what makes racing exciting. People going
for sure.
for it, people fighting. Yeah, people fucking out, but that's part of racing. And I guess people in Baku definitely enjoyed Bar having to lend the brooms to the track personnel. But yeah, it's gonna get interesting there. And moving, I guess, to top 3, Red Bull, which is totally not Renault at all. Tech Heuer.
Tech
They
Heuer, yeah.
Now make engines, apparently. This is the tale
of two drivers, yeah. I was honest to God about to make that joke.
of 2 sides of a coin. You have an Australian who is incredibly consistent. He's not fast enough to be one of the best drivers on the grid, but he is consistent enough to be able to capitalize on every fuck up Mercedes and Ferrari are doing, and constantly get on the podiums. We had 11 races, right? 11?
Yeah, 11 races.
11, and 5 of them he finished on podium. 4 bronze place and
In a row.
win in Azerbaijan. 3 retirements. If he finished a race, he never finished below 5th. He is consistent. He is good. And on the other hand, we have Max Verstappen, who is a menace on wheels, who's basically gotta go. He doesn't give a shit that it's raining. He doesn't give a shit that his car is perpendicular to the track. He gotta go. And then he realizes that Renault is not gonna go.
Yeah.
Or Red Bull is not gonna go. And then his car is dead.
Yeah.
The guy is fast. He's definitely on raw pace faster than Ricciardo. He's not consistent enough. And his car refuses to work.
Yeah, well, and if we look at the races where both of them finished, which there are only 3 of them if my eyes don't deceive, he's on top in 2 of those 3. Verstappen, that is.
Yep.
Again, you know, a couple incidents of his own making aside, he's just... I think that somebody flipped the switch and Vettel, and it's not Vettel, Weber's got to be pissed as fuck because, well, now we're going to give you the broken car complex has gone away from the Australian. and so, yeah, Verstappen, I really don't know. I don't think that they have a 1-2 driver sort of complex like they did during the Weber-Vettel days, joking aside. But for some reason, Verstappen's car is behaving a little like Hamilton's did last year, where for some reason it's almost always his car.
Yeah. It's definitely not enough luck for the Dutchman. I wonder if he's pushing his car too much. He is always going 100%. He's not just slowing down to finish the race where he is. He's gonna push every single second until he crosses the line, gets the checkered flag, or his car gives out.
Yeah,
I
but
wonder if that might be his problem.
A lot of these failures have happened way too early in the race for that to be a factor. I understand where you're coming from, but they've happened so early on in some instances. Like, where was it that he was fighting? He could have fought for the win. Austria, I think it was? And his car just blew up, like 20 laps into the 70-something. So I don't think that it's necessarily him pushing too hard. And with all the telemetry they have nowadays, he's a smart enough cookie that if the team said this is critical, you need to back off to finish. I don't think he's just going to ignore them like Jimmy Whincup does in V8. But I think that there's something's just not quite right with that car, and I don't know. The watchmakers need to get on fiddling with their bits to sort shit out because, you know, Verstappen is young, and by virtue of being young, it is a bit hot-headed. You know, one bad season might be enough for him to say, hey, you know what? Ferrari, if you're not going to sign Kimi, sign me. I'll show you what I can do. And then he takes over number 1 for Vettel. That would be an interesting complex. But he's not going to. I don't think he's going to have the patience to tolerate this shit for much longer unless they get stuff together. Which I hope they do because I would like to see Verstappen in the mix and fighting for it.
Yeah, definitely. As for Ricciardo,
crazy as he can be and idiotic as he can be at times, he does make it exciting.
As for Ricciardo, he is doing well. He's ahead of a Ferrari of Kimi by 1 point, and he's not too far from Bottas in third. It's just 50 odd points. Yeah, that is possibly a big gap, but there's just 2 race wins. Stuff happens. Weird stuff has happened, and I guess Danny is not done yet. The Australian is gonna fight till the end. So we have 2 teams left, and I guess we're gonna have to go driver by driver here since it's a mixed bag from this point forward. Yeah. Kimi. I don't know what to say about him. Does he give a fuck anymore?
I'm not sure. Well, if we go by the last 2 races, or last 3 races even, I think so. Solid results there. Behind Sebastian in 2 of those.
But results. The race in Hungary, he had the pace on Vettel, and he didn't even try to overtake. He complained
team
on
let
the
him
radio. He complained on the radio a little bit. He didn't even get close to Vettel. Not talking about overtaking attempt, but he was hanging around a few seconds back all the time.
Well,
Yes,
let's look
he
at
was-
external factors. It's Hungary, right? If you get close, your tires are fucked. And it's a track that benefits having grip. I mean, there are two things that could happen here. Well, three possibilities, right? Either he doesn't give a fuck, he played this tactically because he knew that he wasn't going to be able to pass Vettel, or that his team wouldn't let him pass Vettel, and so he decided to secure second instead of trying to go for first. Or the team flat out told him, you will not be allowed to overtake Vettel, this, that, or the other. And at this point in his career, if he wants to stay in F1, he's not going to defy that team order, because he has nowhere else to go bar down the grid to Williams, probably, or some other team.
That comes back to the question, if he just gonna sit around and bend over for the team, does he actually give a fuck anymore?
He's enjoying racing in F1 from all indications. He wants to stay in F1 from all indications. It's a question. If Ferrari look set to offer him another contract,
But
because he's in that perennial number 2 role, but does he take it? That's your question. Does he take it? It depends on what Williams offer. If Williams will offer him a seat that Massa is currently occupying, I think that Kimi still has life left in him for a few more years of F1.
See, him enjoying his time in F1 cost Ferrari a driver's seat. A driver's seat that can be Leclerc. I don't believe he's gonna jump straight to Ferrari, but that's a possibility.
But Vettel's been given the first place, the number 1 driver contract. Ferrari have a clear 1 and 2. Right now, Kimi perfectly fills the number 2 role. He's there, he's got speed, he's got consistency when he's not getting hit up the ass by Bottas, and he can still fill the number 2 role. He's picked it up in the last couple races, but does he want to do that?
But
If you sign a Leclerc, the anticipation is Leclerc at some point will become a competition for the number 1 driver, and Ferrari do not like that.
But are they willing to sacrifice Constructors' Championship for that? Because as long as Kimi is there, they're not gonna get it.
Based off of the early season, maybe. Based off the latter parts of the last couple races, I'm not sure. They could. Well, what are they down now? They're down 39 points.
39, yeah.
Yeah, right.
But still, the
First
only
off, you have
driver.
to assume that Vettel keeps this going.
Yes,
The win
still-
in Hungary aside, 4 races before that, 12 points, 18, second place. Okay, great, 6. Vettel hasn't actually had a good run up until the last race, and they've been Mercedes, that is, has been eating into his gap.
Yeah, but then again, you look at Kimi, 7th, 14th, 5th, and then the last couple of races, 3rd and 2nd. And he's yet to win a race since forever, basically. The only.
Well, Azerbaijan wasn't his fault. That was all Bottas all the way. So, dropping that one aside, yeah, the race that he had in fucking Canada wasn't the best race of the world. But then again, neither was Vettel's.
That's true, yeah. Well,
So-
still 4th compared
True.
to 7th.
But then you look at something like Britain, where Kimi just basically made the track his bitch, and Vettel bitched. So
Well, Kimi made the track his bitch, but he still managed to end up behind 2 Mercs. That's the problem.
true.
when
But,
he-
but was there ever any question that we're going to be doing well at Silverstone? I don't think there was ever any question that Mercs were going to take it at Silverstone.
See, the thing is, when Kimi takes Vettel, they still end up behind Mercs.
I still argue Ferrari is the second place car. I still think that regardless of Kimi or Vettel or anything like that, I still don't see Ferrari as. I still don't see them as a WCC team at this point. They're there. They are competing, yes. I can't deny that. They're going to be within a shout of it. But I don't see them overtaking Mercedes in the end. Especially if you look at the tracks that are coming up. If we go based off of Silverstone, the performance Mercedes showed in Silverstone, which was very good. The performance that they showed in Canada, which was very good. What are similar tracks to those that either require high-speed corners to get high-speed corners right, and also get straight-line speed right? Well, we got plenty of them. We have Belgium coming up. Italia, Italy, maybe I could see Ferrari mounting a challenge there. Singapore, I think we might see a Red Bull victory. But then Japan, US, Mexico, Brazil, maybe another Red Bull victory there. But you have at least 3 races, 4 races even, where I could see just Mercedes walking it.
But not from Kimi's point of view, but from Ferrari's point of view. What are they losing by siding Leclerc? Do you really think he's going to challenge Vettel in his rookie season?
I think he could. And I think that you deal with somebody there who's not willing to play second fiddle. So if you get in a scenario where you are close, I don't think Leclerc backs down. I think he goes for the win. He goes to make his mark. And we saw that with Verstappen last year. And credit, as much as I don't like some of Red Bull's management, credit to Red Bull there, they didn't basically say, no, you can't do that, Ricciardo has to be number one. They let them race. I don't see that situation. So I see, and plus also there, Ricciardo is nothing if not a gentleman. And he accepts the fact that, hey, this is going to be a fight. I'm going to have to fight this kid. And he takes it in his stride. Vettel? I see, even if Ferrari are okay with Leclerc challenging Vettel, let's assume that he does. I don't see Vettel being okay with that at all. It's going to be, Cazzo mio, why you let him pass me? He'll go all Italian again. Basically, he's basically acting like an Italian, which I guess, works. Whatever works for him. Currently, he's leading the championship. I mean, we've talked about Kimi. Vettel, credit where it's due. He's been putting in performances. But I don't know. What did they lose signing Leclerc? A guaranteed number 2 driver. Kimi, as much as I love him and as good of a driver as I think he is, he's not going to be able to reach and beat Sebastian Vettel when Vettel is performing at his peak and not going full bitch mode. Vettel is a faster driver, no doubt about that. You can't deny it.
Oh, absolutely. Vettel is fast when he is spending his time driving on the track and not shouting into the mic.
Yeah. And again, while he can overtake people and he can race, Vettel is at his best up front setting the pace. He's not a Lewis Hamilton. If he's up front and he's in his own groove, he can just bang out fastest lap after fastest lap. So, we'll see how things go. It'll definitely be an interesting next couple of races because on top of them being tracks that, while I think Mercedes will do better, I don't think Ferrari will be out of it by any means. There are also tracks where you can overtake and have battles basically the entire length of the track. So it'll definitely be a fun couple of races to see how this shakes out. But as it stands, it is nice to have Ferrari back and challenging, even if I don't think in the end they're going to be within a shout of WCC, regardless of Kimi, regardless of Vettel. It is nice to have a fight back. So there is that.
Yeah, and well, I guess we're moving forward to top 3, and the third place, Valtteri Bottas, who made a decision.
2, right? Are we going driver by driver? Oh yeah, you did say
driver
by driver now.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Bottas, who made a decision of his life, and now challenging Hamilton.
Wow. The kid has talent. Hamilton himself has had some shaky races of not necessarily his own doing in all the cases. Some of it is his own doing, some of it is the car. But now, Bottas, after a good debut and then he scored 8 points, but let's call it what it is. It was a pretty disastrous China. He could have been in contention for the win there, and he fucked himself hard. After that, got his head down, and despite some incidents with Kimi that I think were over-exuberance on his part, and then a DNF in Spain, really solid performances. His first win, which was great to see. It was nice to have another winner. He's definitely a contender for it, and again, credit to Mercedes where it's due. They're letting them race. So it's going to be some excitement there. And then, not got a contract for 2018, but hopefully he extends.
And then you get the performance like Azerbaijan, where he decides to imitate Grosjean a little bit, crash his car, basically get out of contention, be a lap down, and then fly by everyone and pass Stroll like 5 meters from the finish line to get onto the second place.
Yeah, Jensen Button-esque performance there.
That was something else from Bottas.
Yep.
And the very next race, he just wins. He just beats Vettel with Hamilton nowhere to be seen in Austria. And he
Yeah,
has five podiums in a row. And only 3 races that he didn't get on the podium. The China, retirement in Spain, and Monaco.
Yeah.
So Bottas is performing well, and he still might have a chance at WTC. He is in the shadows, but if Vettel and Hamilton will be too busy fighting each other, I can see Bottas stealing it, like Kimi did.
Yeah. Possibilities, top 5. Anyone in the top 5 could win it. Realistically speaking, limited to the top 3.
Yeah, I don't think Ricciardo and Raikkonen are gonna get there.
They could. I mean, one of them hits a vein of form. Ferrari starts doing good, and Kimi just locks in with the car. He could do it. Ricciardo, maybe, but like we were discussing, I don't think there are enough tracks that favor Red Bull to have him really mount a challenge consistently. And that's assuming that the engine gremlins that plague Verstappen don't start to affect Ricciardo. So yeah, top 3 realistic, and it's close. I mean, this is something we haven't had for many a year. But yeah, Hamilton is only 14 points behind.
14 behind Vettel, and Bottas is 19 behind Hamilton.
Yep. So
within a win of each other.
Exactly. One of them has a DNF if Hamilton's engine goes full German once again. You know.
Vettel gets torpedoed, and here we go, the Finn in the lead.
Yeah.
It is possible. Well, regarding the 3, I guess we're gonna talk about them together. Sebastian Vettel just decides to be great again.
Make Germany great again?
Despite... No, please. We've been through this 70 odd years ago.
Sig Heil and all that bullshit.
Yeah. Despite his
bitching,
he
out of context, and I'm gonna lose my job. Yeah, I'm fucked.
If that's the reason you're losing your job, NSA is not doing their job right.
You're a massive fucking cunt.
Regarding top 3, they're performing well, all 3. Just one question. Who's gonna take it?
Well, I'm a fan of Hamilton. That's well known. I really like Bottas. That's well known. I give it to Vettel. I still think, unless Ferrari massively fuck up in the development war, I still think Vettel's going to be able to eke something out of that car. Again, that's dependent on him not fucking up and going full bitch mode. I could still see it though. And to be honest, as much as I don't like Sebastian Vettel, a German winning the championship for Ferrari, I think would be a really cool story. But I don't count Vettel out of the fight, or excuse me, I don't count Hamilton out of the fight completely. It wouldn't surprise me if Hamilton was able to pip it at the end. I think that Hamilton's overall, I think the better driver, the more complete driver. Sebastian is quick, and arguably quicker on a one-lap pace, but I think Hamilton, with his skills in the field, is going to be able to stay right up there, and I think that he could do it. Valtteri winning in his debut season, that would be a hell of a story. I'm just not sure that he's going to be able to sustain the amazing run. We've seen him be error-prone occasionally, as with China, as with incidents with Raikkonen and others. I'm not sure. I give it to Vettel just, but I would not be surprised in the next couple races if Hamilton ate that lead away and overtook it and started to fly away too. It all depends on Mercedes' development, whether or not they have the power to overtake the Ferrari via car. Because driver-wise, I really can't make a decision between the top 2, although I give it to Vettel just.
As for me, I don't know why. It definitely doesn't have an explanation, but I don't see Hamilton winning.
Just a feeling you have?
Just the feeling of how his season has been going.
It's been interesting.
Something is always going on with him. He either wins with a great gap, or he's nowhere to be found. This inconsistency is gonna hurt him, and I don't see him winning. I don't know why, just a feeling. As for the most logical choice, I have to go for Vettel, but I don't know why, again, it's a hunch that Bottas might steal it.
Yeah, if Mercedes get ahead of Ferrari, and let's just say that happens, And we look between Hamilton and Bottas. Hamilton's a better driver, no question. But it has been a weird season.
Basically, what I see.
It could be the fact that a lot of times he gets buried in qualifying, or gets buried after the start of the race. Before, the argument that I see is before, what allowed Hamilton to be aggressive was the fact that he could trust the field around him. These days, with the way drivers are driving these days, I don't think he trusts half the field. And so he's unwilling to make the moves that he used to make on a lot of people because, well, he doesn't know what's going to happen. So he plays the safe game. He says, I'm going to bring this car home and maximize what I can. I think that's been the case in numerous races. And then in some races, he's just been flat off the pace. Period.
Yeah. I see Bottas overtaking Hamilton in the championship based on consistency. And then it's going to depend on which team develops better. It's going to be Mercedes versus Ferrari, and the leading men, I think, are going to be Vettel and Bottas. Whoever performs better is going to take it. I somehow don't see Hamilton taking it. I see Hamilton in the third place with not much contention. Ricciardo and Raikkonen are not going to catch him. He's going to be just behind Bottas. That's what I feel, but he's not going to beat him. And Bottas and Vettel, I see them close to each other till the very end, and who knows what's going to happen then.
Well, the Finns and the Germans do like to get rather close, so we'll see. We'll see what the future holds. As of now, the standings, as you guys know, Vettel's on top, but that might change. So we've gone through the drivers, we've gone through the teams. Anything else we want to go through before we wrap up this return to form, as it were? And by form, we mean, holy shit, these fuckers have been talking forever again.
Yeah, I guess speaking of the future, just gonna get a couple of news out of the way for the next season.
Oh god, I know what's coming.
I'm gonna leave it till the very end, and I know what I'm gonna say about it. First of all, French Grand Prix is back next year,
as is the German.
And they picked the wrong track for the French Grand Prix.
Yeah, leave it to them.
It's gonna be Circuit Paul Ricard, owned by Bernie Ecclestone, and conveniently picked by Bernie Ecclestone instead of Manicourt or anything else really.
At this point, I would take the Bentley track at Le Mans over fucking. No, just Paul Ricard can go kill itself.
It is basically one huge parking lot with just some random line drawn in the middle of it. It's basically you take any street IndyCar track and remove the walls.
Yeah,
this is what Paul Ricard is.
Lot we raced in Las Vegas in F1. At least that had the character of being in Las Vegas. This doesn't even have anything. It's in the middle of
fucking nowhere.
France. Yeah.
Basically, it's near some airport, and that's about it. So the only spectacular thing you're gonna see there is a plane taking off and hopefully not crashing, while the car with the fastest top speed is just gonna fly away on that straight. Yes, there is a chicane in the middle of it, but combined that straight is longer than any of the 3 Mulsanne straights in Le Mans. And those are huge!
Yeah,
it's
and with
2 kilometers long!
With the grip these cars get, they could probably take the chicanes at least half throttle and just whoop whoop.
And it's half the track. The rest of it is just sweeper corners or chicanes. There is no racing to be had there. I have no idea why this track is here, and I hope it's just one race, and then Bernie gets told to fuck right off, and we have something decent. Speaking of something decent, Hockenheim. We're back in Germany.
Yay! Still not the old Hockenheim, so only half of a woohoo, but at least the German Grand Prix is back on the track. Back on the track? Wow.
Yeah, hopefully we get some fans in the seats this year. I'll take Hockenheim over Nürburgring, probably.
Yes.
It has some character in it, it has some interesting zones, and it has some long straights, which are not really straight. And it has a turn 1, which is gonna be a disaster.
Yeah. No, it should be good. I mean, Germany's population is soared, so they should be able to get asses in the seats.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. I guess we're gonna see it next year. And the last change in calendar is Malaysia goes bye-bye. Last race this year, and they decided not to continue with Formula 1.
Yeah. Well, whether or not that becomes permanent or not, I'm not sure. It depends on if there are new negotiations contractually to see the race come back. You know, it's been an interesting track. It's not a bad circuit, I don't think, but I really don't know. What do I feel about it? I'm not sure that I feel overly upset that it's going away. But then again, at the same time, it was kind of cool having those intermittent rainstorms that could just spice things up at a moment's notice. And now that it seems like FIA has finally gotten some balls and are starting to let them race in the rain again, uh, I don't think. I really don't think that it's the net good thing for F1 to have it go away. But I'm not overly
It,
fussed, to be honest.
it is an interesting track. It has its own great things, including Turn 1. It can be replaced easily, I believe.
Yeah. Yes. Well, I mean, the first sector of Malaysia is basically the same thing as China, with a little bit of a different elevation profile.
Yes, basically. I would prefer it to China. I prefer Malaysia to China in general.
Yeah.
I don't like China. It doesn't have anything. The Lowness Strait is appalling. The turn leading onto the strait, I hate it with a burning passion, and the 24/7 smog over the city, which delays every single time. Everything is not helping anyone, and I wish it would have been gone instead of Malaysia, but oh well. That's
Yeah.
not gonna happen, and
From a
Malaysia's
market
going.
perspective, there's no way in hell. I mean, if they're able to grow the market in China, I mean, we can say bye bye to these bullshit Middle East races for money. I mean, China will provide all the money and more.
Yeah, that is very true. Well, that would be it for the changes in calendar, and I guess there's only one piece of news we have left. The G-string, the flip-flop, the halo.
Well,
Anything you want to say about it?
I don't see the point. I don't see the reason. If you look back through F1's history, you look back at the driver fatalities that we've had. We had Jules Bianchi, who died in a 150-odd G accident by running into a piece of machinery which should have never been anywhere near the track in the first place. You take that away, Jules Bianchi's still racing today. As it stands, a little piece of carbon fiber or Lexan, whatever kind of solution you wanted to have, would not have saved his life. You go back to that, when's the nearest driver fatality to that? It was 20 fucking years before then with Ayrton Senna, who arguably may have been saved by some sort of device like that, or not. We don't know. It was luck of the draw, and it came up black when it should have come up red for him. Piece of suspension doing him in the end. In all likelihood, this was a response because they would have been legally obligated to do something with Jules Bianchi's father still insisting on suing F1 for some reason, or at least threatening it. And so it was probably a legal liability thing in the end. It's stupid. It's idiotic. F1 should not be about any sort of closed cockpit whatsoever. That's not the identity of the sport. I already argue that the sport itself is too safe as it stands right now. Lack of risk is exacerbating some of the incidents that we're seeing with young drivers, in that they're willing to just do absolutely idiotic, stupid things and pretend like they're playing a video game because, well, there's no risk to them. They know they can just get out of the car and walk away from anything, or so they think. I think it's self-defeating, and you look in the fact that now they're talking about, instead of 5-second, 6-second extraction times from a vehicle, we're now talking 10 plus. Those fire suits, while good, are not meant to endure long-term heat exposure. It's meant to only be a temporary thing until you can get the guy out of the car. I don't understand why we're doing this in long term. I think it's stupid. I think it's idiotic. I think that this is going to, in all likelihood, take a large chunk out of the identity of the sport. And I know for a fact that if this remains, I'm not going to be spending any more money on Formula One whatsoever. I refuse to. And that's all I have to say about that.
Halo is a fucking abomination. And on that note, thank you for spending the last 100 minutes listening to two pundits just rabble around about random things in Formula One. We're gonna come back with more podcasts eventually, hopefully sooner than in 2019, but we cannot promise anything. Until then, this has been Matt.
And that has been Ilya. And we'll see you guys next time. You guys have a good one. Peace. Now go see therapy after you get to listen to us assholes. Bye, guys. Have a good one.
Goodbye.